I'm a 911 operator, and this is the one call they erased. They tell you in training that you'll develop a thick skin, that the human voice, in all its shades of terror, will eventually become just data. A problem to be solved, a location to be found, an ambulance to be dispatched. You learn to filter out the panic to get to the facts. You become a human algorithm for disaster. For 10 years, I was one of the best. I worked the graveyard shift at the Northwood County Emergency Response Center, a windowless concrete box, fueled by stale coffee and the quiet hum of electronics. I'd heard it all, the guttural sobs of a car crash victim, the slurred confusion of a stroke, the frantic whispers of a woman hiding from an intruder. I thought I was immune. I thought I had that thick skin. But there's a difference between skin and a scar. A scar is something that's been gouged so deep it never truly heals. It's a permanent reminder of the damage. My scar has a name, or at least, the name a little boy gave it. He called it the copy. The call came in at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. The graveyard shift is a strange beast. It's either dead silent or a relentless parade of the city's darkest hours. That night was a silent one. The only sounds were the clicking of my colleague Dave's keyboard and the low drone of the air conditioner. My screen lit up with an incoming call. No registered number. No location data, just unknown caller. That's not unheard of, burner phones, VIP glitches, but it always puts you on edge. I clicked accept. 911. What is the address of your emergency? Silence. Not the dead silence of a dropped call, but the live, breathing silence of an open line. I could hear the faint, hollow echo of a room. 911. Is anyone there? What is your emergency? A small voice, a child's, finally broke the quiet. It was impossibly calm. Hello, hello, this is 911. Are you okay? Do you need help? I think so, the boy said, his voice flat, devoid of the panic you'd expect from a child calling 911. I need to tell you about the copy. I leaned forward, my brow furrowing. The copy. Honey, what's your name? Can you tell me where you are? My name is Leo. I'm in my house. Okay, Leo, that's a good start. Can you tell me what street you live on? He ignored the question. The copy came last night. It looks like my daddy, but it isn't. My prank call alarm started blaring in my head. We get them all the time. Kids messing around, teenagers daring each other. I kept my voice steady, professional. Leo, is this a game? It's very important you don't play games on this line. It's not a game, he said, still with that unnerving calmness. His smile is too big now. And when he walks, his knees bend the wrong way. A chill, cold and sharp, went down my spine. The description was so specific, so wrong. It wasn't the kind of thing a kid usually makes up. They talk about monsters with claws and fangs, not anatomical inaccuracies. Leo, where is your daddy right now? The real one. He's in the copy, Leo said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It opened him up and got inside. I saw it. It was putting him on like a coat. The air in the room suddenly felt cold and thin. I gestured frantically to Dave, pointing at my screen, mouthing "Trace this now." He nodded, fingers already flying across his keyboard. Okay, Leo, I said, my voice a little tighter than I wanted. Where is the copy? Right now, he's in the kitchen. He's making a sandwich. The sheer domesticity of the image, juxtaposed with the horror of what he'd described, was sickening. A creature wearing his father's skin, making a midnight snack. Where's your mummy, Leo? She's hiding. She saw it happen. She was screaming, but then she stopped. A pause. The copy told me to tell you she's sleeping now. He told you to tell me that he knows you're on the phone. He doesn't have to know, Leo whispered, and for the first time, a tremor of fear entered his voice. He hears things in the wires. Suddenly, a new sound came through the line. A soft, rhythmic click, ... click ... click. It sounded like a fingernail tapping against a hard plastic surface, like someone tapping on the phone's receiver. Leo, what is that sound? It's him, Leo whispered. He's listening. My blood ran cold. Dave looked over at me, his face pale. He shook his head. The trace was going nowhere. It was bouncing off a dozen dead-end towers, a digital ghost. Leo, I need you to be very brave. Can you hide somewhere? Under your bed, in a closet. He'll find me. He finds everything. He doesn't use his eyes to see. The clicking stopped. A new sound replaced it. A low, wet, guttural noise. like someone trying to clear their throat of thick phlegm. And then a voice, deep and resonant, but fundamentally wrong. It was a synthesized mockery of a man's voice. Who is ... on ... line. It rasped. The words stretched out, each syllable a struggle. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't speak. This wasn't a prank. This was real. Whatever was in that house with that little boy was on the phone with me. This is the 911 emergency service. I managed, my voice cracking. I am speaking with a child named Leo. Is there an emergency at your residence? The voice chuckled, a sound like gravel grinding in a rusty machine. No ... emergency. Just a change in management. The clicking started again, faster this time. Click dash click dash click dash click. What have you done to his parents? I demanded, my training kicking back in. Keep the perpetrator on the line. Gather information. The female unit is offline. The male unit has been integrated. A successful upgrade. The clinical, detached language was more terrifying than any threat. I felt a wave of nausea. Leo, I said, trying to get the boy back on the line. Leo, can you hear me? Where are you? The synthesized voice answered for him. Leo is learning. He is learning how to be quiet. It is an important lesson. And then, something happened that shattered my understanding of reality. Another voice came on the line. It was my supervisor, Brenda. I knew her voice better than my own mother's. Jack, what's going on with this call? The system's flagging it for unauthorized activity. You need to terminate it now. But Brenda was standing right behind Dave, 50 feet away, her back to me, getting a cup of coffee. She wasn't on my line. She couldn't be. I stared at her, then back at my console. Brenda, I whispered into the headset. The voice on the phone laughed, and it was a perfect imitation of Brenda's laugh. Not quite, but it's so easy to listen. Jack, all these little wires, all these little voices, crying in the dark. We hear them all. My entire body went rigid. It knew my name. The synthesized man's voice returned, overlapping with Brenda's laugh, creating a dissonant, horrifying harmony. We hear you, Jack, sitting in your little box, thinking you are safe. You are just another wire, another voice. The line filled with a deafening blast of static, so loud I ripped my headset off, my ear ringing. The screen in front of me flickered, and the unknown caller line item simply vanished. Not disconnected. It was gone. The call log showed my last call was over an hour ago. It was like the last 7 minutes had never happened. I was shaking, drenched in a cold sweat. Dave was staring at me, his mouth agape. What the hell was that? The whole system just rebooted itself. The real Brenda walked over, coffee in hand. What's all the commotion? Jack, you look like you've seen a ghost. I couldn't form words. I just pointed at my blank screen, at the empty call log. The call, a boy named Leo. A thing in his house. It knew my name, Brenda. It used your voice. Her friendly demeanor evaporated. A hard, professional mask slammed down over her face. The look in her eyes wasn't confusion. It was fear, a deep, familiar fear. Stay right there, she said, her voice low and firm. She walked to her office and made a call on her personal cell phone. She spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Less than 10 minutes later, they arrived. 2 men. They didn't wear police uniforms or FBI jackets. They wore plain, ill-fitting black suits that did nothing to hide the athletic builds beneath. They didn't come through the main entrance. They came through a service door I didn't even know existed. They moved with a chilling, silent purpose. Brenda pointed at me. He took the call. The taller of the 2 men approached my station. He didn't look at me. He looked at my console. Talk, he commanded. His voice was flat, empty of all emotion. My voice trembling, I recounted the entire conversation. The boy, the copy, the father's skin, the mother sleeping, the clicking, the synthesized voice, the mockery of Brenda, it knowing my name. I left nothing out. The man listened without a single change in his expression. When I was done, he just nodded slowly. He turned to his partner. It's another glitch call. Pattern is consistent. Informational hazard. His partner typed something into a small unbranded tablet. The first man turned back to me. The call you took did not happen. There is no record of it. You will not speak of it to anyone. Not your colleagues, not your friends, not your family. You will sign this non-disclosure agreement. The penalties for violation are not financial. The threat hung in the air, heavy and absolute. But that boy, Leo, I stammered. We have to find him. We have to send a unit. There is no one to find, the man said, his eyes finally meeting mine. They were cold, dead things. There is no Leo, there is only a signal, a glitch in the system. Sometimes, the glitch talks back. You were just unlucky enough to answer. They put a document in front of me. It was thick with legal jargon, but the message was clear. Forget, or be made to forget. I signed it. My hand was shaking so badly my signature was barely a scribble. They took the paper, turned, and left the way they came. The service door clicked shut behind them, and they were gone. Brenda looked at me, her face etched with a mixture of pity and terror. "I'm sorry, Jack," she whispered. "Just try to forget it. It's better that way." I couldn't. I quit a week later. I couldn't sit in that chair anymore, waiting for another glitch to call. I moved 3 states away, took a job stocking shelves at a 24-hour supermarket, anything to be away from the wires. But I never forgot. I never will. They erased the call from the system, but they couldn't erase it from my head. I still hear Leo's calm, terrified voice in my nightmares. I still see that impossibly wide smile he described. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm on the phone, I hear it. A faint click, ... click ... click on the line. A ghost in the machine, a glitch in the system. And I know they're still out there, listening. These things that wear our loved ones like coats, that learn to talk from our cries in the dark. And I know that what I spoke to wasn't just a monster. It was an infection in the world's nervous system. And I was just one of the poor bastards who accidentally picked up the phone. I'm a park ranger. We're taught one thing. If the woods go silent, run. My name is Alex, and I've been a park ranger in the sprawling Arapaho National Forest for 6 years. It's not a job you take for the money. You take it for the quiet, for the smell of pine after a rainstorm, for the humbling sight of a mountain silhouetted against a sea of stars. You take it because some part of you feels more at home under a canopy of ancient trees than under a roof. Most of our job is routine. We clear fallen trees from trails, guide lost tourists back to their Priuses, and tell people for the 100th time not to feed the bears. You deal with the occasional poacher or illegal camper, but for the most part, the woods keep their own counsel. When I was a rookie, my senior ranger was a man named Dale. He was a leathery, stoic man who had spent 30 years in these woods and looked like he'd been carved from one of the older pines. On my first week, he sat me down in the rickety office, the smell of stale coffee hanging in the air, and gave me the official rule book. Then he leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Now, the book tells you how to handle a bear encounter, what to do in a wildfire, how to spot hypothermia," he said, tapping a calloused finger on the thick binder. "But it's missing the most important rule, the one we passed down." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "If you're out there, deep in the sticks, and everything goes quiet, I don't mean quiet like a peaceful afternoon. I mean dead quiet. No birds, no squirrels, no insects, not even the wind. You turn your ass around and you run. You don't ask why. You don't wait to see what's coming. You run back to your truck and you don't stop." I must have looked skeptical, because he just shook his head. "It's not a predator, kid. Predators make noise. Their prey makes noise. This is different. The woods know when something that doesn't belong is moving through them. They hold their breath. You need to hold yours and get the hell out." For years, that rule was just a piece of spooky ranger folklore, a story we'd tell the new guys to haze them. I'd experienced moments of quiet, sure, the lull before a storm, or a deep winter afternoon when the snow muffled everything. But I'd never experienced the silence Dale described, not until last Tuesday. The call came in around 3 p.m. A missing hiker. It's the call every ranger dreads. A 20-year-old college student named Sarah Jenkins. She'd been hiking the Black Creek Trail, a moderately difficult 8-mile loop. She'd sent her mum a picture from the summit overlook at noon, but hadn't been heard from since. Her car was still in the parking lot. Protocol kicked in. We formed a search grid. I took the western sector, a rugged area that descended from the main trail into a dense, little-trafficked valley. It was the most likely place for someone to get lost if they wandered off the path. For the first couple of hours, it was just hard work, pushing through underbrush, shouting her name until my throat was raw, my eyes scanning for any sin, a piece of clothing, a footprint, anything. The forest was alive with its usual symphony. Jays screeched insults from the branches, cicadas buzzed in a relentless high-pitched drone, and the wind whispered through the ponderosa pines. It was a normal day in the woods. I found her water bottle around 5:30 p.m., lying near a small, unmarked game trail. It was a good sign and a bad one. Good, because it meant I was on the right track. Bad, because it confirmed she'd left the main trail. I radioed in my position and discovery, then pushed on, following the faint path deeper into the valley. The sun began to dip below the western ridge, and the light turned a warm, syrupy gold. Long, distorted shadows stretched from the trees, making the forest floor a confusing mosaic of light and dark. This is the time of day the woods begin to change. They lose their welcoming sun-dappled character and take on a more ancient, watchful quality. I switched on my headlamp, its bright white beam cutting a stark tunnel through the deepening gloom. "Sarah, can you hear me?" I called out, my voice sounding small against the vastness. Only the echo answered. That's when I first noticed it. It wasn't sudden. It was a slow fade, like a volume knob being turned down. The cicadas were the first to go. Their constant, electric hum had been the background music to my entire search, and its absence left a hollow void. I stopped, standing perfectly still, and listened. Nothing. The birds had fallen silent. Not a single chirp, not a rustle of wings. A few minutes earlier, the evening chorus had been in full swing. Now, there was only a profound, unnatural stillness. I strained my ears, trying to catch the sound of a squirrel chittering, a mouse skittering through the leaf litter. Anything. There was nothing. Even the wind, which had been a constant companion, seemed to have died completely. The air was heavy, stagnant, and cold. Dale's words hit me like a punch to the gut. If the woods go silent, run. My heart started hammering against my ribs. A cold dread, primal and suffocating, washed over me. This was it. This was the silence. It felt wrong, like a vacuum where life should be. The entire forest was holding its breath. But what could I do? Sarah was still out here. My duty, my entire professional ethos, screamed at me to keep going. I was a ranger. I was the one who went into the danger, not ran from it. It's just an animal, I told myself. A mountain lion or a bear that spooked everything. A big one, maybe. My hand instinctively went to the bear spray on my hip. I took a few hesitant steps forward, my boots crunching unnervingly loud in the dead air. I swept my headlamp beam from side to side, my senses on high alert. The beam caught something up ahead. It was Sarah's backpack, a bright blue nylon bag, lying in the middle of the trail. Relief and fear warred inside me. I rushed forward, calling her name. Sarah. The backpack was torn open, not ripped by an animal, but slashed, as if with a razor. Her spare jacket, a granola bar, and a map were strewn on the ground. There were no bloodstains, but there was something else. A faint, musky odor, like damp soil and rotting meat. "Sarah, I'm Park Ranger Alex Grady. Are you here?" My voice was trembling. And then I heard it, a sound that made every nerve in my body scream, a faint giggle. It sounded like a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. It was thin and reedy, and it came from the impenetrable darkness just beyond my headlamp's reach. It was a sound that had absolutely no place in the heart of this wilderness, miles from any home. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice cracking. The giggling stopped. It was replaced by a whisper, a sound that seemed to slither through the trees right to my ear. It was my own name. ... AAA, Alex ... That's when the rule stopped being a suggestion. It became the only thought in my mind. Run. Dale's face flashed in my memory, his expression grim and certain. I didn't hesitate this time. I turned and sprinted back the way I came, my heavy boots pounding the earth. I didn't run like a man. I ran like prey. Branches whipped at my face, tearing at my clothes. I stumbled over roots I couldn't see, my lungs burning, my breath coming in ragged, panicked sobs. Behind me, I could hear it. It wasn't running, it was moving. There was a wet, heavy thump thump thump, punctuated by the sharp crack of snapping branches. It was keeping pace with me effortlessly, staying just out of sight in the darkness. Then it started talking again. But this time, it was Sarah's voice. A perfect imitation, filled with terror. "Help me, please. It's got me. Why are you running?" I squeezed my eyes shut and ran faster. It was a trick. It had to be a trick. But the voice was so real, so full of pain. For a horrible second, I almost stopped. "Alex, don't leave me," it shrieked, the voice now right behind me. I risked a glance over my shoulder. In the bouncing, chaotic light of my headlamp, I saw it. It was only for a fraction of a second. but the image is burned into my brain forever. It was tall, impossibly so, easily 9 feet. Its limbs were long and spindly, bending at angles that were sickeningly wrong, like a spider's legs. Its skin was the pale, mottled grey of a dead tree's bark, and it seemed to stretch too tightly over a frame that was all wrong. It had no discernible face, just a smooth, blank expanse of flesh where features should have been. As I watched, a slit opened vertically down the center of its face, and Sarah's voice poured out of the dark void. "I'm so scared," I screamed, a raw, mindless sound of pure terror. I pushed myself harder, fueled by a surge of adrenaline so potent it made me dizzy. The thing behind me wasn't just chasing me. It was toying with me. It could have caught me at any second. It wanted me to feel the fear. It was feeding on it. The trail was a blur. The world narrowed to the small circle of light in front of me and the horrifying sounds behind me. I remembered the flare gun in my emergency pack. My fumbling hands tore at the zippers, my fingers feeling like clumsy, useless sausages. I finally got it, my hand closing around the cool plastic grip. Without stopping, I twisted around, pointed the gun into the darkness behind me, and fired. The world exploded in a brilliant, searing red light. The flare hissed as it shot into the trees, casting the forest in a demonic, flickering glow. In that split second of illumination, I saw the creature clearly. It was standing just 20 feet away, one of its long jointed arms raised as if to shield its featureless face from the light. It recoiled, letting out a sound that was not human. It was a high-frequency shriek, like metal grinding on metal, a sound that vibrated deep in my bones. That moment of hesitation was all I needed. I turned and ran, not even looking to see if it was following. I just ran until I thought my heart would burst. The horrible shrieking faded behind me, replaced by the sound of my own blood roaring in my ears. I finally burst out of the tree line and onto the main trail, collapsing onto the gravel path, gasping for air. I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet and kept going, half running, half stumbling the remaining mile to the parking lot. When I saw the familiar shape of my patrol truck, I almost cried with relief. I threw myself inside, locking the doors and fumbling with the keys until the engine roared to life. I didn't look back. I peeled out of that parking lot, spraying gravel, and didn't slow down until the park entrance was miles behind me. I told my supervisor I was chased by a large, aggressive mountain lion. They bought it. An animal attack is something they can understand. The search for Sarah Jenkins was officially called off 3 days later. They found a few scraps of her clothing, but nothing more. She was listed as another tragic victim of the wilderness. I still work as a ranger. I can't imagine doing anything else, but something broke in me that night. I never go into the deep woods alone anymore, and I am never, ever out after sunset. I've heard the silence one other time since then, from the relative safety of a lookout tower. I just locked the door and waited for the sun to rise. Dale was right. The woods are full of life. They have a voice, a constant, humming, breathing song. But there are things out there, ancient and wrong, that can make that song stop. And when they pass by, the entire world holds its breath in terror. If you're smart, you'll do the same, and you'll run. My neighbor vanished and left his journal. The last entry is a true horror story. Suburbs have a rhythm. It's a quiet, predictable drumbeat. The Monday morning groan of garbage trucks, the Saturday buzz of lawnmowers, the distant laughter of kids after school. For 3 years, my neighbor, Arthur Penwright, was a part of that rhythm. He was the metronome. Every morning at 7 a.m., he was in his garden. Every evening at 5 p.m., he'd roll his empty trash bin back up his driveway. He was a quiet, meticulous widower in his late 60s, a man whose entire world seemed to be contained within the neat borders of his perfectly manicured lawn and his award-winning rose bushes. I work from home as a graphic designer, so my office window looks directly onto Arthur's garden. We weren't close friends, but we had that easy, suburban familiarity. We'd wave, chat about the weather over the fence, and I'd occasionally help him carry a heavy bag of mulch from his car. He was a kind man, if a little lonely. His roses were his pride, and joy-deep crimson blossoms so perfect they almost looked fake. The rhythm broke about a month ago. It started subtly. I noticed Arthur was out in his garden at odd hours, sometimes long after the sun had set, pacing frantically. His perfect posture was gone, replaced by a nervous, hunched shuffle. He started neglecting his roses. The brilliant red blooms began to brown at the edges. One afternoon, I saw him standing motionless in the center of his lawn, just staring at his own back door for almost 20 minutes. When I waved, he flinched like a spooked animal and hurried inside without acknowledging me. I figured it was just old age catching up with him, or maybe grief from his wife's passing a few years back, finally taking its toll. I made a mental note to bake some cookies and check on him. I never got the chance. A week later, he was gone. It was the mail carrier who first raised the alarm. Arthur's mailbox was overflowing. The police came, did a wellness check, and found the house empty. No sign of a struggle, no missing valuables. His car was in the garage, his wallet and keys were on the kitchen counter. Arthur Penwright had simply vanished. The police interviewed me, of course. I told them about his recent strange behavior. They nodded, jotted down notes, and left. A missing persons report was filed. Days turned into a week, and a strange quiet settled over Arthur's house. The police asked if I would water his precious roses while the investigation was ongoing, just in case he returned. I agreed. That's how I found the journal. I used the spare key the officers gave me and let myself into his house. It was just as meticulous as his garden had once been. Everything was clean, dusted, and in its proper place. The air was stale, thick with the scent of potpourri and old paper. On a small, tidy desk in his study, sitting perfectly parallel to the edge, was a simple, leather-bound journal. Curiosity got the better of me. It felt like a violation of his privacy, but he was gone, and I had this gnawing feeling that the answers were right there. I opened it. Arthur's handwriting was a neat, elegant cursive. Most of the entries were about his garden soil acidity, pruning schedules, observations on aphids, mundane stuff. Until the last few pages, the neat cursive grew frantic, jagged. I sat down in his creaky office chair and began to read. October 12th, there is something in the garden. I know how that sounds. A lonely old man seeing phantoms among the petunias. But this is different. It started last week. Tools being moved. My favorite trowel, left on the grass instead of hung on its hook. A single, perfect rose from the Mr. Lincoln bush, clipped and laid on my doorstep. I thought it was neighborhood kids, a prank. But last night, I was woken by a sound, a soft, wet digging sound. When I looked out, there was nothing there. This morning, I found a hole dug right in the middle of the lawn, about a foot deep. There was nothing in it, it was just a hole. I filled it in, but a cold feeling has taken root in my chest. It feels like I'm being watched. My own skin prickled as I read that. I glanced out the study window at his garden. It was bathed in the late afternoon sun, looking perfectly normal, but the story had already planted a seed of dread. I kept reading. October 15th, it's not kids. It's cleverer than that. The digging has stopped, but other things have started. I hear whispers on the wind when there is no breeze. Sometimes, it sounds like my Eleanor's voice, calling my name from the back of the garden, near the old oak tree. I know it's not her. I know it's a trick, but my heart aches to answer it. The roses are beginning to wilt. They are turning a sickly, blackish color around the edges, as if the very soil has been poisoned. Last night, I saw movement, a shadow detaching itself from the greater shadow of the oak tree. It was shaped like a man, but it moved too fluidly, like spilled ink. When I turned on the porch light, it was gone. My heart was starting to pound. This wasn't the rambling of a senile old man. This was the documentation of a growing, specific terror. I could almost feel his fear bleeding through the page. I turned to the next entry. The handwriting was noticeably shakier. October 19th, I saw its face tonight. God help me, I saw its face. I couldn't sleep, so I was sitting in the dark kitchen, just watching the garden. And there, on the other side of the glass patio door, a face materialized in the reflection. It was my face, my own tired, wrinkled face looking back at me, but it wasn't my reflection. Because when I raised my hand to my mouth in shock, it just smiled. The smile was wrong. It was too wide, stretching my features into a grotesque mask. It didn't have my eyes. The eyes were hollow, like two black holes. It just stood there, on the other side of the glass, wearing my face and smiling that horrible, impossible smile. I screamed and scrambled for the light switch. When the light flooded the patio, it was gone. It's learning me. It's practicing. I slammed the journal shut, my breath catching in my throat. I stood up and walked to the patio door in the living room, my reflection a pale, nervous shape in the glass. I half expected to see another face smiling back at me. There was nothing, just the overgrown garden and the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and blood. I had to know how it ended. With a trembling hand, I opened the journal again to the final entry. The page was dated October 21st, the day before the mail carrier reported him missing. The handwriting was a barely legible scrawl, the pen having dug so deep it nearly tore through the paper. It wasn't an entry so much as a final, desperate warning. October 21st, it's in the house. I don't know how it got in. I locked everything. I salted the windowsills. Just like the old books say, it did nothing. I heard it moving downstairs an hour ago. It was dragging something. It has my voice now perfectly. I heard it humming the tune Eleanor used to hum while she was cooking. It's trying to lure me out of the study. It keeps calling me, telling me dinner is ready, telling me it misses me. My God, its voice is so sweet, so kind. I know what it wants. It doesn't want to kill me. It wants to replace me, to take my home, my garden, my face. It wants my life. I'm writing this as a warning to whoever finds it. Do not trust the man in the garden. Do not talk to him. It is not me. It is a hollow thing wearing my skin. It's coming up the stairs now. I can hear the floorboards creaking. Oh God, it's humming again. It knows I'm in he. The sentence just stopped. The ink trailed off into a long, spidery smear across the page, as if the pen had been violently yanked from his hand. A cold, paralyzing terror seized me. It was a primal fear, the kind that bypasses reason and goes straight for the spine. Arthur hadn't just vanished. He'd been erased. And then I heard it. A floorboard creaked upstairs. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't alone in the house. I slowly, silently, pushed the chair back and stood up, my ears straining against the sudden, deafening silence. Was it my imagination? The house settling? Creak? No, it was a footstep, slow, deliberate, and directly above me. My mind raced. The police had cleared the house. No one was supposed to be here. I backed away from the desk, my eyes glued to the ceiling. I left the journal lying open on the desk, a silent testament to the horror that had unfolded in this quiet, suburban home. I had to get out. Now. I moved on tiptoe, my every movement feeling thunderously loud. I reached the front door, my hand shaking so badly I could barely turn the deadbolt. With a final metallic click, the lock opened. I pulled the door open and slipped outside, not daring to look back. The cool evening air hit my face, and I broke into a sprint across the lawn, not stopping until I was safely inside my own house, with the door locked and bolted behind me. I stood there, gasping for breath, my back pressed against the door. My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. What do I do? Call the police? Tell them what? That I read a spooky journal and heard a creak? They would think I was insane. Then, through my front window, I saw him. Someone had walked out of Arthur's front door. It was Arthur. He was wearing his usual gardening clothes, a faint smile on his face. He looked calm, healthy, even younger. He ambled over to his neglected rose bushes, plucked a dead leaf off a stem with a loving gentleness, and then turned his head, his eyes locking directly onto my window, directly onto me. He raised a hand and gave a slow, friendly wave, and then he smiled. It was the same smile from the journal, a smile that stretched just a little too wide, that didn't quite reach his cold, hollow eyes. He saw that I knew. I'm selling my house. I'm putting everything I own in storage, and I'm leaving this town tonight. The police found the journal, but they've listed Arthur's case as unresolved. They think he wrote it in a fit of dementia before wandering off. But I know the truth. I see him every day, from my window. I see him chatting with the other neighbors, offering them gardening tips. They all say how much better Arthur seems lately, how much happier he is. He's a perfect neighbor now. He brings in their trash bins, waves to everyone, and his roses have never looked more beautiful. But sometimes, late at night, I see him out there. He doesn't garden. He just stands in the center of his perfect lawn, motionless, and stares at my house, his face a blank mask in the moonlight, waiting. So if your quiet, elderly neighbor suddenly starts acting strange, maybe you should leave them alone, because you might discover that they're not just losing their mind, they're losing their place.